The much awaited elections of the Under Fire Wrestling Federation of India have finally been announced. The Indian Olympic Association has announced that these elections will be completed by July 4, and for that purposes they've also appointed a former retired judge to the ad hoc committee that is managing the day-to-day affairs of the Wrestling Federation of India. They've assigned Justice Mittal, who's a former Chief Justice of Jammu and Kashmir High Court, to the ad hoc committee, and he will also be serving the role of the returning officer under whose guidance and watch a free and fair election for the Wrestling Federation of India will be held by July 4. But it is likely that the date could change by the time the election process is announced, nominations etc. are called in, and an AGM or an SGM is called where the elections will be held. Now, these elections are extremely important. One, because of course they're coming after a full fight by protesting wrestlers against the outgoing WFI president Brij Bhushan Sharan. But they're also very interesting to watch out for because in the last meeting of the protesting wrestlers and the sports minister Anurag Thakur, the latter had assured the wrestlers that nobody close to Brij Bhushan Sharan and certainly nobody from his family would be allowed to contest the next elections for the WFI, which is the National Federation. Now, this is interesting because Brij Bhushan Sharan himself cannot contest these elections anymore. He has served as the president for 12 years, so he's run through his quota and he can no longer contest these elections. But he does have his son, for example, who served as the WFI vice president. He's associated with the UP Wrestling Federation. He's also got a son-in-law who's associated with the Bihar Wrestling Federation, and technically you cannot quite bar anyone from filing nominations for such elections. Anybody who's associated with the state federation, and if the state federation chooses to nominate them, can fight for these elections for the National Federation as well. So it will be very interesting to see whether family of Brij Bhushan Sharan actually stay away from these elections, as one of the assurances given by the sports ministry to the protesting wrestlers is. What is also interesting or curious to note is that the wrestlers don't want even anybody who's close to Brij Bhushan Sharan, a confidant or somebody who's been close with him from his camp, to contest these elections. Now, how are you going to define somebody who's a confidant of Brij Bhushan Sharan, and can you really bar them from contesting these elections? How are you going to identify? Family is one thing, but how are you going to identify that so and so is close to Brij Bhushan Sharan? Brij Bhushan Sharan, of course, because of the fact that he's been ruling the world, ruling the WFI for 12 years, obviously has a lot of support, not just in the National Federation, has had it, of course, over the years in the state federations as well. And state federations tend to be very cliquey. There are obviously camps, and there are people who are considered close to one or the other. So how are you going to ensure that nobody close to Brij Bhushan Sharan and certainly his family do not contest the next elections? Technically, you cannot bar anyone from filing your nominations, but this is one of the most interesting things to watch out for, because amongst the key demands of the wrestlers, one has been that he should have been arrested. Now, that seems to be a moot point now, because the investigation by the Delhi police and the sexual harassment charges against him is almost nearing completion, and we're expecting that a charge sheet will also be filed. Post that, I don't know whether the wrestlers will continue to demand an arrest. It depends on the charges that are slapped against him. In any case, a trial will begin. But the other more important demand by the wrestlers has been that they don't want the Wrestling Federation to fall back into the hands of Brij Bhushan Sharan via proxy. So the most interesting thing to watch out for will be whether anybody close to Brij Bhushan Sharan, somebody considered from his camp or his family members, file the nomination. And this will be one of those interesting things that the returning officer, who's now the former Chief Justice of Jammu and Kashmir High Court, etc., will have to look into as to how these elections are conducted. Certainly all eyes are on the WFI elections, because they would want to steer clear of the controversy that has taken place under Brij Bhushan Sharan and want a break from that and start afresh as far as the next stint of the WFI and its elected members is concerned.